And today I have my special guest, executive futurist, Forbes contributor, and keynote speaker as well. No other than Mr. Robert B. Tucker. Welcome, Mr. Robert on Entrepreneurship 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
You bet, Daniel, and it's a pleasure to be on Entrepreneurship 101. And I understand you're located in Canada, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What part of Canada
And
are you located in?
uh, well, Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, okay, yeah, just up the coast. I'm in Santa Barbara, California this morning. So
Well, nice to see you then. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Robert. Thank you. And today, let's talk about being the president of the Innovation Resource and internationally recognized leader in the field of innovation. So, tell us, you've been studying innovation since 1981, before it was recognized as a field. What the first drew you to this topic, and how's your understanding of innovation evolved over 4 decades?
well, thank you for that question. It really takes me back because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, as I know you are. And so, my story, let's start it where I got fired from a job. And I didn't have any prospects, but I had a dream, and that was to become a writer, a self supporting journalist. And I said, I'm a single man. I'm living in an apartment in Los Angeles. I said, if I'm going to do this dream, now's the time. And so I took a big risk and almost starved, but I lived to tell about it, and I would not change anything. And I would just say to those of us who are listening today, you can pursue your dream, and no matter how bleak the situation might be at this point in time, maybe you've been rejected from some big idea or project that you wanted to pursue, and maybe you feel like the prospects or the opportunities are less today. But I just want to say, if I can do it, you can do it. I know that's kind of an old cliche, but so I started out, I got fired. I started out, wow, who could I write articles for and get paid for it? Back then you could actually
Mm.
get paid for writing. I mean, everything's disrupted now, but so I began just knocking on doors. And I really believe that if you're serious about what you're trying to do, that's what you have to do. You just have to just keep trying, knocking on doors. And Daniel, back then it was a little simpler because you could pick up the phone. And I would pick up the phone and I would call editors of magazines and newspapers. And I would say, hey, my name is Robert Tucker, and I'd like to pitch you an article on so and so. And they were very, kind of gruff and very, matter of fact. But they'd say, well, what's the article about? And so I learned to give a better pitch in a shorter amount of time. What is this thing about, right? And sometimes they say, well, all right, maybe, and go for it. And so that's how I got started. And so it's that initial rung on the ladder for people, I think is very, very, can be very daunting. Don't let it be. You've got to tap your resources of faith that are inside of you, that you are going to make it big. And believe me, 8 books later, I've worked and traveled to 54 countries. I'm going to Botswana in the very near future. And I'm just totally excited about, discovering a whole new country and working with the entrepreneurs in that country to basically sell them on themselves. Because I believe inside of all of us that we have those seeds of greatness, and we just need to tap those seeds. And that's what my life's work has been about.
Well, thank you for empowering us, Mr. Robert. You make a powerful distinction. Innovation must be approached as a disciplined process, not a creative free for all. Why do so many companies still treat innovation as a flavor of the month rather than a systemic capability?
Well, that's exactly right. I have been part of what we might call the innovation movement back in, let us say, the early 2000s. There was tremendous uprising of interest in innovation. What are the tools of innovation? How do we spawn innovation? And my contribution to the movement, so to speak, was this notion that innovation should be approached as a systematic process, a systematic discipline, not as a flavor of the month or on again, off again, or sometimes we think about it, but rather it's in our DNA. And I've never really looked back on that. I've worked with big companies, I've worked with small companies in entrepreneurial environments, I've worked with mid sized companies, and I've worked in almost every industry that you can imagine. And I find that there are some similarities. Successful companies are always looking to do more for the customer. Not so much what are we going to do, how much money are we going to make if we do this idea, but will this serve a need? And so, one of the biggest things that I believe in, Daniel, is if you're wanting to become an entrepreneur, have your antenna up. No matter where you go, if you're at the grocery store, if you're at the gas station, if you're on an airplane, you got your antenna up. What do people need? What are people saying? And just take it in. Because one of the things that I did in my early career, when I knew people didn't want to listen to me, so I went out and interviewed successful entrepreneurs and corporate leaders and so forth and so on. And wow, I began to see that they have certain similarities. There are certain disciplines that they follow, right? And one of them, hands down, most important was their curiosity. In other words, I'll look at people in an airport, they're sitting there, talking on the phone or tapping on their computer, but that's an opportunity right there to explore that environment. Let's say you're at a soccer match. Let's say you're at church. Let's say you're wherever, right? What's going on here? What are the people's needs? So you focus on not yourself, but on other people. And in doing that, you find opportunities.
Very well said. Master Robert, you coined the term innovation vanguard to describe companies like Whirlpool, Procter and Gamble, and BMW. What separates these firms from the 90% or 97% that talk about innovation but never achieve it?
Right. Well, the innovation vanguard refers to those companies that really get it, so to speak, in terms of the way that they operate, um, the way that they approach innovation, if you will. And they do things that are different than other companies. For example, as we've already said, they treat it as a discipline, not an on again, off again, flavor of the month, off again kind of a process, but something that they pay attention to at all times. So they look at their products, they look at their services. How can these be improved? Yes. How can we take cost out? But in most companies today, unfortunately, they've developed kind of a bad habit. They've let the bean counters, the money people, right, say, well, we could put a little filler in the beef here. We could get away with cheapening the product, and we'll make more money. Our margins will be a little better. And I understand that. I mean, it's what a business has to do to survive, but that's not the full picture, right? What you want to look at as the leader of your organization, no matter how big or small, is are we adding more value to our customers today than we were yesterday? Or have we fallen behind in that respect? It's so easy. I talk about uh, the discovery engine and the delivery engine. And as you might imagine, the delivery engine is all powerful. I mean, we've got to get product out the door. We've got these deadlines. We've got these deliverables. That's your delivery engine. But visionaries like yourself, Daniel, have a different approach to this. What are we discovering? What have we discovered lately? What happy accidents have we had? You know, a lot of products, when we studied them, turned out to have been sort of happy accidents. Somebody was just tooling around, like the guy that did the post-it note. He was just minding his own business, but he just boom came up with this idea for the post-it note and Velcro and so forth and so on. The guy takes a walk, and his colleague gets all these burrs out in the wilderness in his fur. And this guy's apparently a scientist of sorts, and so he puts one of those burrs underneath a microscope, and he discovers that clasping nature of a burr is replicable, and that's how he came up with Velcro. And on and on and on it goes. So pay attention to the happy accidents in your life. We're so concerned about the sad accidents, but the things that are going even better than you ever thought they would. Maybe you've got a product that suddenly takes off, right? Look at how making masks was a rather routine, boring business. But all of a sudden, when COVID came along, wow, you can make masks for us? Okay, you're hired, right? And we want several million product, and we want it overnight. So those are just some examples of how we need to pay attention differently in order to fuel our futures.
Very well said, Mr. Robert. We need to fuel our future. You tell a compelling story about Celestial Seasoning sending 7 managers to a 3-day brainstorming session, and 3 years later, zero ideas made it to the market. The spokesman said, "It's our corporate structure and management. It's hard to get ideas through an organization. What was broken that organizations, and how would you have fixed it?
Um, so you're asking, if I understand, what is
What's
broken?
broken?
Well, I
What's
think
broken in the organization?
yeah, I think in most organizations, what's broken is their sense of vision about the future being greater. I think right now people are very much obsessed with and distracted by, to some extent, artificial intelligence, and we're all kind of paying attention to how we can integrate artificial intelligence into our customer service, into our call centers, whatever, our chatbots. And that's fine. I mean, that's kind of like the current wave, and everybody is focused there. But what I want to suggest, that Daniel, is that our readers and excuse me, our viewers of this podcast think about other things besides that, right? And so what might that be? Well, this curiosity that we're talking about, of again finding needs and filling it, hyper focusing on not our own needs, or even just how do we integrate AI into our world, which is it's huge, but it doesn't really add value to our customer. And those companies, probably in your own town and community, there are certain restaurants, certain businesses that everybody is just so excited about, right? There's a restaurant in town here called Cajun Kitchen. And I mean, I don't want to stand out in the rain or the hot sunshine or whatever, but they have a line out the door every day. There's another one called Janine's Bakery in town here. And those kind of businesses, what is causing that demand? What is their secret sauce? So my suggestion, my strong suggestion is, start studying businesses that have a secret sauce, because they're few and farther between these days. But when you get to those, you want to figure out what their differentiation is, because we're living in a world of everything's alike. Every gas station's alike. Every, you know, I don't know, Starbucks is all alike. So what's unique? And it's those people who are coming up with unique ideas, unique ideas for franchise. And so that's one thing. Another thing is that you want to study demographics. I know this sounds like a really boring thing to do, but look at where demographics are going in your marketplace, right? For example, here in the United States, we are rapidly an aging population. So people who are aging, and this baby boom generation that I'm sure you've heard about is getting into the oldest baby boomer is now 80 years old, right? So they're going to have different needs than folks in their 30s or 40s or 20s. And so tune into what their needs are going to be, not just now, but in the future. There was a famous ice hockey player by the name of Wayne Gretzky. Have you heard of Wayne Gretzky?
No, Mr. Robert, sorry.
He was with the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay.
And he famously was talking to a journalist, and the journalist asked him why he was so successful on the ice. How did you get to be this quality of player? And he said, well, it's very simple. He said, I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where the puck is going to be. And that's what you and I have to do as entrepreneurs today. We need to spend more time anticipating. How do you do that? Well, you improve your information diet. You see, I'm going to challenge your viewers. Take a look right this moment at what's going into your mind as far as the written word, as far as videos that you watch, whatever, your media content is in total. Because if you're filling it with TikTok, it's not going to give you the nourishment that you need. So you need to audit and change your information diet. When was the last time you read a book, especially like an inspiring business book by some successful entrepreneur? That is so helpful. I can't tell you how helpful that is. I read these books like they're candy going out of style. Even after 40 years of doing what I do, I still am thrilled to be able to read it. I just read a book on the CEO and founder of Patagonia, the apparel maker. And boy, what an entrepreneur! What an incredible guy! What an incredible person! And he recently gave away all of his money to charity. So anyway, uh, yeah. So those would be some of my suggestions, Daniel.
Very well said, Mr. Robert. Your book, Innovation is Everybody Business, identifies 7 skills that individuals must develop. You
Right.
emphasize that none of these innovators you studied were born with these skills. They developed them out of necessity. What is the most surprising you've seen someone develop this skill on the job?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you a funny little story. There was this secretary at a manufacturing company in Ohio, I think it was, and I guess maybe a consultant came through and said, you really need to tap the brains of everybody in the organization, not just a few people, right? And so they said, well, to all the employees, we want your ideas. And, so please submit your ideas if you have, like a lot of companies have a suggestion box or, some sort of suggestion program. They were very big for a while there. I'm not sure about now, but so this woman, I don't remember her name, but she actually, came up with this idea because she was talking to customers all day long. Now, this is back in the day when telephones were still the way we communicated, not email. But she kept talking to customers, and they would be complaining and about something, and so she developed this sort of excellent question to get them to tell an idea. She said, "Well, okay, I see what the problem is. And what would you do? What would you suggest that we do to solve that problem? And oh boy, they had plenty of suggestions. And she just grabbed her pen and she just wrote down all those ideas and she submitted those ideas to her new ideas suggestion program. And they gave her an award because she submitted more ideas than anybody else in the company. So they were smart enough to reward her for that. I'll give you another example. I was in uh, Africa not too long ago, and I did a program for this business group. But this man came up to me and he said, would you be willing? I've got a group of entrepreneurs over here, and they are, he said they are just regular average people. And he said, but would you please come and talk to these people? And I said, well, gosh, I don't think I can do that because I've got this flight, I've got to leave Johannesburg, South Africa, and so forth. He said, well, if we can figure out a way to get you in and get you to the airport, would you do it? And I said, okay, and it was like it required a brief flight over to Durban, South Africa, very early flight, and then a really fast pace to get me to the airport and get me back to Johannesburg to connect up with my flight. But I am so glad I did it, Daniel, because here's what happened. I was looking at these sort of tabletop exhibits by these local entrepreneurs there, and there was this one lamp that caught my eye. It was made out of a 1 liter soda bottle. And I took that bottle on the stage with me and I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to understand what innovation is all about, you're looking at it. And this woman, had probably never been to Harvard Business School. She'd probably never had the opportunity to even take some classes on entrepreneurship, which I strongly recommend. And yet, out of the resources of her own mind, right, wanting to create an opportunity, she created this lamp, this product. It was battery operated, and again, as I say, it was made out of a soda bottle, recycling a soda bottle that might just ordinarily have been thrown away. And that is my favorite metaphor for what innovation is really all about. It's taking the resources that we have around us and then translating those in and combining those to solve a customer problem.
Very well said, Mr. Robert. And to wrap up our discussion for today, you've noted that Fortune 500 companies are turning over faster than ever, with about
Yes.
40% expected to vaporize in the next decade. For a CEO of an incumbent company facing disruption from the companies that don't even exist yet, what is your single most urgent piece of advice?
Well, I think that trend is actually going to continue because of the exponential pace of change today. And I would say that the biggest challenge that the corporate CEOs have is, can we adapt fast enough to meet the challenge of change? This next 10 years, Daniel, we're going to see more change than we have in the previous 100 years, all in one decade, right? And you're seeing it already. I mean, just look at the way this whole field of podcasting has come to the fore. It didn't even used to exist, right? And so we're going to see more breakthroughs, but we're going to see more breakdowns. Just people not being able to cope with change. And so I think as leaders and as entrepreneurs, we can play a vital role in this whole equation. Whether we're corporate CEOs, whether we're leading a small, or maybe you're leading a business from your home, a home-based business, doesn't matter. The trick will be, the challenge will be to adopt the mindset and the skill set and the tool set of the entrepreneur, of the innovator. And if you do that, you're going to prosper. To do that, if you do that, you're going to thrive. If you do that, you're going to have abundance. If you do that, you're going to have a great life.
Mr. Robert, we want that abundance in everywhere. You work with the Economic Development Ministry in Singapore, Dubai, and Morocco, and with the companies in 44 or 46 countries. What was the important lesson about innovation you've learned from non-Western culture that the American companies desperately need to hear?
Wow. Economic development is it's just something that it's near and dear to my heart. I've had, as you say, the great privilege of working with economic development organizations literally around the world. Singapore has probably the most outstanding. I mean, here is this small island city. I mean, it's a city state, right? I don't know, where are you and your family? What are your origins? What is your ancestry? What country?
The Philippines, Mr. Robert.
Philippines. Okay, so I've worked in Manila
Hmm.
several times. A great country. I've very much enjoyed that. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So let's see. So yeah, economic development is near and dear to my heart. I love working with entrepreneurs and so forth like that. Um, so maybe if you'll have me back, we'll let's get in on that topic when we have a little more time to unpack that one. Sound good?
Definitely, please do come over and let's talk about something good. Mr. Robert, so can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Well, okay. So if people want more information, just go to www.innovationresource.com. And also, we haven't talked about this too much, but Build a Better Future: 7 Mindsets for Navigating the Age of Acceleration is my most recent book.
But,
It is
okay.
available on Amazon and at your local bookstore. And so I would strongly suggest and recommend that you might want to check it out. There it is. Boy, I'll tell you, you're quick there. So yeah, and so
Yes. So
hopefully,
please do come over, Mr. Robert. Please do come over on my book one on review and let's talk about build a better future.
thank
Okay.
you, sir.
I mean, I
Thank
will
you.
invite you tonight. I hope our second episodes and more episodes to come. So, Mr. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Marticam people, see you soon. Again,